Hey guys, this is Korak from Edureka. Welcome to today's session on AWS services. Now, before we start the topic at hand, let's just look at today's agenda. The first thing we discuss is what is AWS, followed by why do we really need AWS, and then we talk about the various services that AWS provides us. Then we give a demo on certain AWS services, and finally we end it with a conclusion. Also, if you do like our videos, please do subscribe to the Edureka channel. And if you're looking for an AWS certification, please do check out the link in the comments below. So, what is AWS, right? So, AWS is the world's leading and most broadly adopted cloud platform. So, basically, as we can see right now in today's world, everything has moved to the cloud. When you're talking about the industry, when you're talking about various companies right now, all of their data, all of the operations that they do, everything has moved to the cloud. So basically, AWS provides its users with over 200 different services from various data centers all around the world, right? Now, these services can be various services from management tools to storage, analytics, or computational services as such, right? So it's a mixture of all the various different services that cloud computing provides. Let's say like infrastructure as a service or platform as a service or software as a service. It's a mixture of all of these three. And basically the fact that AWS is global, so you can access AWS from anywhere around the world, and it has this mix of various services which ranges from analytics to computation to management. And the best part about AWS is that pay-as-you-go model, which means that basically you will have to pay for the services that you use or for the time that you use it for, and not for a monthly basis. So then we come to why do we need AWS? So the first thing we see is that it helps scale your operations. Now, basically, scalability is extremely important when it comes to business agility because the more you scale your operations, the more profits you have and the more efficient you get, right? So there are services such as Elastic Load Balancer, which helps you scale, or certain services, computational services are there, which helps you scale your resources. Then we come to reliability. Now, the fact that AWS basically is extremely reliable because it is very secure and it is global in nature. So, the infrastructure of AWS is global and can be accessed from anywhere, right? So the fact that it is so global and so widespread makes it extremely reliable because it is used all over the world. Next, we come to cost effective. Now, cost effective is extremely important when it comes to AWS because more than 80% of companies have been using AWS right now. And the fact that they have moved to AWS is because of the fact that it is extremely cost effective and helps save them a lot of money, thereby scaling their operations and then meeting their business goals as well or financial goals that they have. So all of these things are interconnected, right? Now next we talk about business agility. Now business agility is all about being efficient. Now the more efficient you get, the more agile your business will be. Now efficiency can be in terms of productivity, can be in terms of financial stability, and it has to improve your company's overall revenue, right? So the last one is high speed deployment. Now every service that you have on AWS will basically have high speed deployment. So it doesn't really take a long time to create a service from scratch and deploy it on AWS so that you can use it from anywhere around the world, right? So next we come to the various AWS services that are there. Now these can be grouped into various ones such as compute, so that there are computational services that AWS provides users. Then we see that there are storage services as well. Now storage services are extremely in use and one of the most popular ones after compute. Then there is the database services that are there. Now these can be NoSQL databases or relational databases as well. And then there is networking services that are there. Now networking services are extremely important, mostly because of the web hosting and as well as tracking your website and stuff like that. You need that as well. And finally, we have analytics. So analytics is also extremely important to basically see how your resources on AWS are doing. Now, there are various other services, but these are like the 5 pillars of AWS, right? So let's talk about these services. The first service is basically a compute service called Elastic Compute Cloud. So the EC2 is basically a service that offers its users the compute platform they need. So it has an option of 475 various instances and choices of processor that the user can have, as well as storage and networking as well, with an option of which operating system you want to run it on as well. So it has extremely wide range of options that it provides its users, and it's most in use, and it's probably one of the most used services on AWS. So the next thing we see is AWS Lambda. So the AWS Lambda is basically a serverless event-driven compute service that lets you run code for virtually any sort of application or backend service that you have, right? And you do not have to provision separate servers for that. So that is what Lambda helps you do. It's basically something that is a compute service for any sort of backend application service that you have or managerless service. So the next thing we see is storage. Now storage is basically extremely important. It comes right after compute, and the most popular storage service is the AWS S3, which is the simple storage device. Now the AWS S3 is basically an object storage service, so you can store data in it, which can be anything starting from a picture to, let's say, a text document, right? It offers its users very high scalability, right, and extremely high data availability and security. So it offers its users the option for making public access blocked or available. It offers its users the chance to create policies so that you can access or not access, delete or not delete certain things that you store in the S3, right? Next, we talk about the Elastic File System, which is the AWS EFS, right? Which is basically, it helps you automatically grow or shrink as you add or remove files in it, right? So that is why it's called the Elastic File System. It can basically dynamically allocate certain data storage in it. You basically need to specify a certain limit, and it can dynamically allocate the resources within itself, right? So next we talk about the database services that are there. So basically there is DynamoDB. So next we come to Amazon DynamoDB. Now DynamoDB is a NoSQL database. Now that is basically something that has no relational tables and attributes as such, but it has data in it, right? Now what DynamoDB does is basically it is very serverless, and it has based on key value, right? Now it is very high performance, and it can get any application back to scale, which is why it is extremely in use when it comes to database services in Amazon, right? So the next thing we talk about is the Amazon Aurora. Now, the Amazon Aurora is another database service, but instead of NoSQL, unlike DynamoDB, it is based on MySQL and PostgreSQL, right? So these are two basic compatible SQL servers that you have, and after that you need basically a compatible relational database built for the cloud that combines the performance and the availability of traditional databases, right? So it's extremely cost effective and open source as well. So this is very easy to use and change, because you can always change anything that you do on an open source service or a software. So then we talk about the networking services. Now, when it comes to networking services, we have Amazon Virtual Private Cloud, which is the VPC. Now, this VPC gives you full control over your virtual networks or the environments that you have. So this includes the resource placement, security, all of this, right? So after this, we talk about the Amazon API Gateway. Now, Amazon API Gateway is a fully managed service that makes, so it is not managerless or serverless. So it makes it very easy for developers to create, publish, or maintain an API, repeat, or maintain an API at any scale as such. So it's extremely easy to use, and it's one of the most popular networking AWS services that are there. So then finally we come to analytics. So we have the Amazon Athena. Now, the Amazon Athena is a very interactive query service that AWS has, and it's very easy to use and analyze data that you have in certain other services that are integrated into it, such as the S3. And basically, you use standard SQL, give these commands, and it is always pay only as you use. Right? So you only have to pay for the queries that you run, and you don't have to pay for anything else when you use Amazon Athena. So then we look at AWS EMR. So EMR is a cloud big data platform which is used for running large scale distributed data processing jobs, right? So interactive SQL queries are used basically along with ML applications, and this is how you basically use EMR. Now you can use other frameworks such as Apache Spark, Hive, Presto, etc., and it's basically used for big data analytics, and you can use a bit of NLP, a bit of ML in that, and mostly it's used for data processing, and you integrate a bit of SQL in that as well. So up next we come for the demo for AWS services. So basically what you do is you create an account on AWS, and when you do that you can log in with your password and your credentials as well, and this is what you come to, the AWS management console, right? So what you can see here is you have a various options of various services that are there. Now these services can be different from analytics to application integration, VR, and compute, and these are various other services. So let's check out some of the services, right? So the first thing we check out is, let's say, DynamoDB. So you type DynamoDB here. So this is DynamoDB. It's basically a service basic for databases. So you can create a table without actually having to use any SQL as such. So you can just give the table name. I can give it as table one, right? So the next you specify the partition key that you have to have. Partition key is basically the primary key. So the primary key is always something that is uniquely identified with. So in here, instead of primary key, it's just called partition key. So let's just keep the partition key, which is basically different primary key here, as number. So it's going to be a number type, or we can keep it as, yeah, we can just keep it as number. So next is about sort key. Now sort key is something that allows you to search all of the data that is there using the same primary key. So that is used as sorting, which is an optional feature, so we can or cannot do it. So we'll just use default settings, which is the fastest way to do it. And there can or cannot be tags. Now basically tags are optional values that you add, that you can basically assign to certain data that you have in the table, right? So what you can do right now is just create table, and your table will be created. It will take certain amount of time do that, because AWS takes a bit of time, but it should be done in about 5 minutes. So as you can see here, the table has actually been created with the name of the table being table 1. The status is active because it has just been created, and partition key is basically the primary key that is there, that is going to have some sort of number in it, which is going to be unique for every sort of data that we enter, which is why it is the partition key. And you will basically have to see the read and write capacity mode. So we can just enter this table right here, right? And check out what is there. So here is the general information that is there. So the partition key, the sort key, if it was there, if we checked it. So there are no active alarms that we have set, and it is active. So item summary, so there are no real items, right? So we have to add an item. So let's do that. Let's add items. So we can just go to explore table items. So this is a table that we have. So what we can do is we can just go to create item, because there are no items here in the table. So this is going to be, let's say, 17, and that is the primary key that we have. Now let's say there's going to be a string attribute that you need. So let's say the roll number was the roll number of a student, and now what you can do is you can just add another attribute here, just like when you do with relational databases, as let's say name, and it's type string, so you can add, let's say, Jake, for example, and you can add another value if you need. Now this can be different if you want. It can be binary, it can be string set, anything. So this is basically another attribute that we can add. So this is the type, which is list. Now the list can be different. Now we can have different types of things in a list. Now this list can be third language, let's just say, right? So we can insert any sort of field here, and this can be string, right? So you can just add string here. All of these will have, let's just say, first will be Hindi, this will be English, and we can have another field of string, let's say Punjabi. Yeah. So repeat. You can have Hindi, English, and you come to the third one, and you can basically have Punjabi, let's say, and you create these items, right? And you create the first item. So this is literally one item that is there in your table right now. So you can just check what is there in your table, and you can see this is the only items that's there as number 17, which is the primary key, which is basically the partition key. This third language, which is basically string, and a list of different things such as Hindi, English, and Punjabi, and the name is J. Now what you can do here is you can create another item, because there's just one item and you cannot really have a primary key if you don't have another item, right? So let's just say this is 26, right? And after that you'll have to add a new attribute. So this one is also, let's say, name, and let's say name is same, which is Jake. And for example, if we do something different, if this is the same and it's non-redundant, and then we basically go and do the same with this, we go to list, insert a few fields like Hindi, English, and let's say for this one we change it to Bengali. So this is basically two different things. So this is added as a new different attribute because I hadn't put it under third language, right? So if I had put it under third language, it would have come under this. So these two would have been together, but since the name is basically the same attribute for both items that are there, so this is basically under the same name. And you have another attribute here, which is new value, right? So what you can do here is you have various things you can do here, right? You can edit the entire thing. You can set it as, let's say, 19, and save those changes. Okay, and right after that, if you basically recreate this item, it is updated and set as 19, right? So basically what you can do here is you can basically carry out any action. So we can just see about the updation. Now after updation, we can basically see there are various actions we can do. We can just delete item, and since that item has been selected, 19 is now deleted and the only thing that is there is 26. So this is how DynamoDB works. Up next we come to basically Amazon S3, right? So Amazon DynamoDB was a database service and S3 is a storage service that we're going to talk about. Now Amazon S3 is all about creating buckets. Now buckets are basically used to store information. They're used as storage, right? This is a storage service. So what you can do here is you can go to create bucket. Now what you can do is you can name your bucket. Let's say I name it 1, right? After that, so you can basically choose the region you're from. So I'm here in India, I'll be choosing Mumbai. And if you don't have an existing bucket, and if you don't have settings for your bucket, you can basically choose any existing bucket that you have. But since I do not really have an existing bucket, I cannot choose an existing bucket to have settings from. So this is our first bucket they're making. Now the next thing we see is ACL. ACL is basically related to account ownership, right? Object ownership in the account. So you can choose to block public access in your bucket, right? So, and versioning is basically anything to do with multiple versions or variants of your bucket. So basically it is used to recover, right? So when you lose a certain file or a bucket or certain data, if you have versioning enabled, what it will help you do is it'll help you get a certain copy of the same data that you had. And tags like one before is help you to associate to your bucket. So this is optional, you can or cannot. So you can choose to enable encryption, which is basically used to encrypt and protect your data, or you can choose to disable it, and it is labeled right now. So let's just create this bucket, which is going to be called product 1, and we go create bucket. So basically you've created this bucket right now, right? So if you go check out this bucket, what you can see is this is the bucket that is there, right? So you can upload any sort of object that you have. Okay, let's say for example, so basically this is one of the data that you can have in your bucket. Now this can be used as destination, and you can upload this, and it has basically been uploaded successfully. Now what you can see here is this S3 bucket has this file in it, right? So this file has this 6 KB download.3 png file in it, right? So this is how you can store data in S3, right? Now if you basically go back to buckets, what you can do here is see that there is some sort of data in the bucket, right? And you can see the kind of storage it has. That gives you an option of standard storage or other parts of storages. So then we come to permissions. Now permissions is basically something that you use to authenticate users in your system. Now users in your system will basically have to be authenticated before they access any content or data that you have in your bucket. So basically what you can do here is you can change public access. So public access, the moment you have blocked, nobody can access your data that is there in the bucket, and you could basically edit this. And to confirm this, you just have to write confirm, right? So public access is on, so there is no such bucket policy, right? So you can add certain bucket policy. So you can just go here and you can see the policy that is there in your system, and this is the policy that is there which has allowed public access. And what you can do is this is basically the rules that you set. After that you can just go to management. Now, what management does is basically, so this can show you different things that you can do with S3, such as lifecycle status. Lifecycle status is something that you use when you want to store a certain bucket or a certain amount of data in a bucket for a certain point of time, and then migrate it to another bucket, or migrate all the data in the existing bucket to another bucket, or delete the bucket or something like that. But the data has to migrate. So what you can do is you create lifecycle rule. So you can name all of this, and you can basically choose a scope for the rule, and you can type all of this, basically the type of filter you want. So any type of filter that you want in your lifecycle thing which is basically making it easier for the destination to be chosen. And you can also have tags. Now basically you can add actions or rules that you can have, and after that you can just create the rule that you have with create rule, and your lifecycle rule is created. So after that, we see there's replication. So this is about data replication. So data replication is basically you want to basically add a certain set of rules to a more than one data in some bucket. Okay. So what you can do here is you can have another name for it, let's say 098, right? And after that you can choose the source bucket. So this is my bucket that I've chosen, so this is the source bucket. And the limit also, you'll have to have the destination bucket, but I don't have destination because I've created just the one bucket. All you have to do is create another bucket and you can just store that there. And what you can do after that is you create this. Now after this, what you can see is encryption. Encryption is something which is extremely important when it comes to data redundancy, because when you're coming to replicate data for basically storage purposes or recovery purposes, encryption is extremely important because it maintains the integrity of the data, right? So all of this, and then we talk about the access points. Now access points is basically the different points you can access your data or the S3 bucket in. So access point is different policies that you can have. So what you can see here is these are the different policies that you can have for access points that are there, right? So let's just check it out now. This is very optional when it comes to the security, which is the public access right now, right? And we are creating access point, which is, let's say, access point. So this is the name of the bucket that you have for access point, which is mine. And this is the region that we have, which is Mumbai here. So this is virtual private cloud. So you will have to mention the ID of the virtual private cloud, right? So if you have created a VPC, you will have to be creating that. And then after that, you can just save it once you have that HTML policy that you need to basically set the rules. And then you can just create the access point, right? So up next we come to AWS CloudTrail. So this is something that is used for logging. Now logging is something that you do when you want to monitor your account activity. So what you do in CloudTrail is you help create trails, and let's see here, you create a trail, and this is the name of the trail, which is management events, let's say, right? And you just create the trail. Okay, so this is basically one management event, which is a trail. Now what you can do here is you can do various things, which is it is logging data, and this shows you where the location of the logs are being stored. This is basically SNS, which is simple notification delivery service, which is being disabled, but you can always enable that. What you can do is just stop logging data or start logging data. I will just stop it for now, and you can always choose to edit this, right? So let's go here. What you can see is the details. The name of the trail is management events, let's say. What you do here is you go to S3, you create a new S3 bucket. Since I don't have it, I'll be creating one. This is the name, but you can just use an existing S3 bucket if you have it. So you can have encryption, which is something which is important for maintaining the integrity of the data. And apart from that, which we have log file SNS or all of that here, right? So let's just see that. So what you can do here is that you can go to CloudTrail, you can go here to the dashboard that is there, right? So over here, what you can see is this is the name of the trail that you've made, which is management events, which is off, which is not logging data right now. So this is the event history tab, which is basically a tab which shows you all of the things that has happened inside CloudTrail and all of the things that the user has done, and other certain things in services which are associated or integrated with AWS is also visible. So here you can see that I have stopped logging, so that has been here, it's been logged, the data has been logged, right? So apart from that, we can see start logging, all of the things that you can see here. Let's say create trail, right? So all of this is there, and you can see put bucket policy, and register scalable things. So these are all, username is root, which is my user. Now this is S3, which is an integrated service with CloudTrail. So you can see what is going on inside S3 as well in CloudTrail. Now this is extremely useful for users because it is something which helps them keep track of their services which they have running on AWS, right? So this is an overview of some of the services that AWS provides us with. So in conclusion, what we can see is that more than 80% of organizations have moved to the AWS cloud. And as of 2021, it accounts for over 13% of Amazon's yearly revenue, right? So AWS makes sure your organization's operations run very smoothly and much more scalably and secure. So cloud is definitely the future, and AWS is something which is proof of that, right? AWS is basically taking over the entire computer industry, and it is basically here to stay for the long run. With that, I end today's session. Thank you and have a nice day.
I hope you have enjoyed listening to this video. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries, and we will reply them at the earliest. Do look out for more videos in our playlist and subscribe to Edureka channel to learn more. Happy learning!